Good vibrations.
Well, today we are continuing the theme that we've been exploring in recent shows with Christopher James and John Smith regarding common/constitutional law as our best way out of the mess that we all find ourselves in, and possibly the only way in the absence of some kind of people's revolution and uprising. And there's no indication of that happening anytime soon here in Britain, I can tell you. So I'm chatting today with Jacquie Phoenix of the Practical Lawful Dissent organization. Welcome along, Jacquie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries. So the tagline for your Practical Lawful Dissent organization reads, "We are doing our constitutional duty to protect the realm from treason and tyranny. We use only evidential facts and constitutional law. Stand with us in lawful dissent against this treasonous regime," which sounds pretty good to me. That's as good as any mission statement gets. So you're Canadian, right?
Yes, I am.
But I know you're in the UK right now, and you've been here for a while, going from place to place on the Redress tour. So maybe you just want to start by telling us what that tour's all about and how it ties into the core of what you do with the Practical Lawful Dissent group.
Well, first off, we only use Article 61 because it's the only law in effect since March 23rd, 2001. It actually, it's the highest constitutional law ever written. And it actually dethroned the monarch and dissolved all governments throughout the Commonwealth of their authority, leaving only Article 61 as the only law in effect. And that law tells us to reject the treasonous regime and distress the crown in any way that we see fit, as long as we do not harm them or their heirs. So we have lawful excuse to break any act, statute, or legislation with impunity, as long as we don't break common law. Do no harm, cause no loss, commit no fraud, and keep the peace. So it's very simple. There is no government, so they have no authority, and we just hold them to that. We also want the police to do their job and investigate the crime of treason. So we're asking them to look at the evidence, the FCO 301048. It's our most damning piece of treason evidence. But there are many treasonous documents that need to be investigated because these are crimes against the people. And Article 61 is the law that deals with the crime of treason. Treason is the worst possible crime that can be committed because it's the death of an entire nation. So it's a very serious crime, and the people need to stand united under Article 61 and hold them accountable. Article 61 being the security clause, it's basically an instruction manual to the people on what we need to do. So we're just following instructions and doing our constitutional duty as our Constitution commands us to do to end this government tyranny. And that's what this redress tour is all about. We're getting the people ready to lawfully reinstate the rule of law.
Okay, so there seems to have been some disagreement and division among people that are active in this field over whether the Magna Carta can still be invoked, and specifically whether Article 61...
It already has been invoked.
Right. Only you have people arguing over whether Article 61 still stands and whether it's still got validity.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on it.
Yeah, and all I can say to that is Article 61 has already been in effect for 20 years. And while the rest of the people of the Commonwealth are using our Constitution actively, people in the UK are still arguing about its validity. And honestly, that's an absolute disgrace, if you ask me.
It is. Yeah, at a time when we need unity more than ever, and our backs are completely against the wall, why are we still having arguments and bitching and back and forthing, you know?
We have the remedy at our fingertips. Use it or lose it. In Alberta, we got a saying, get her done, hun. So, yeah, we got to look at it like that. We have the remedy. Let's use it.
So is common law the same as constitutional law in terms of terminology? Because I hear both phrases used. Is it the same thing?
Well, yes and no. The best way for me to say this right now is that criminals have our courts. So right now, our common law is not effective because it's not enforceable. We need our rule of law restored, the court du jour. And that is very, very different from the basic common law court we see today. And it all starts with getting our buildings back. Each and every single courtroom throughout the Commonwealth realm is already a common law jurisdiction, but they've been usurped by criminals. And that has been done over decades and hundreds of documents. They've usurped the Crown and our courts. Okay, so every single court is already common law jurisdiction. They're supposed to be free of charge, and there's supposed to be juries in every single courtroom with the right and duty to nullify any act or statute that is unconstitutional. That's what we need.
Well, a big problem is that among the criminals that you speak of are the mainstream media, and they keep all this stuff from the public so that the average person in the street has no clue about any of this. It's like talking a foreign language to them. And this is a real big hurdle to overcome because most people are just seduced and entranced by the lies and the poison of the mainstream media. And they've never come across any of these concepts before. You know, they've got all this power waiting at their fingertips to be applied, and yet they have no idea of it. So it's a very real problem, isn't it? Mainstream media propaganda.
Yes, mainstream media propaganda is absolutely the worst, but it's all there in the documents. Like, we have all the treason evidence dating right back to 1942. So, yeah, it's all Nazi propaganda that we're seeing today. All the documents prove that this is, in fact, the Nazi backup plan in case they didn't win the war militarily.
Yeah, it certainly feels like World War III without a shot having been fired. It's a different kind of war now, different strategies used. And it's one thing to get members of the public up to speed on their rights, but it's another when it comes to the order followers who are actually enforcing the tyranny and the taking away of our rights and freedoms on behalf of their overlords. So if you tried to stand in your power by quoting the Magna Carta or Article 61 to the average police officer, it would be like trying to have a conversation in a foreign language. So again, it seems a very major part of what needs to be achieved involves getting the police and various government officials educated with this information. I'm sure once you reach a certain point in the chain of command, people would understand this very well. But as I say, the average rank and file officer out there on the streets won't have been trained in any of this knowledge. So I don't know how you would overcome that. Well,
the best thing I can say there is that we've already got the silent majority. Yeah, we've got police officers, we've got military members, we've got lawyers, judges, we've got doctors, we've got nurses, we've got council members. Yeah, we've got the silent majority throughout the Commonwealth, in fact. They do know, like, the thing is common law is based on natural law. It's our conscience that is the conduit. We are all born with an instinctual knowledge of right, wrong, and fairness. So that's the thing. People have consciences and they can see what's going on. And you got to have faith in humanity on this one a little bit, because the silent majority is out there, but you got to realize that they're putting the food on the table for their families. You know, they need those jobs. They're just trapped in a corrupt system and they don't know what to do about it. So they're just waiting for their day when they can safely stand with the people. And that's what redress is all about. We're gonna put an end to this government tyranny lawfully, and peacefully, using Article 61 the right way.
Well, yeah, the police standing with the people is something I can only dream and fantasize about in Britain. I did a podcast a couple of days ago, actually, which I put out with a couple of guys from Austria, a couple of young activists, and they're talking about incredible things that are happening there, where the police at some of these protests and demos have been standing on the side of the people, and they really feel that the tide is starting to turn there. But, you know, being British born and bred, and having seen the apathy and inaction of people in this nation, like I say, that's only something I can dream about, the police actually siding with the people. But you've been out and about in the UK.
You definitely need to come to one of our events then.
Okay. Well, you've been out and about all over the UK. So are you hopeful and optimistic of that dynamic actually happening?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The people are so excited and so ready. It's absolutely beautiful to see smiles on people's faces. It's nice to see them light up with hope again. They can see light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, bright one.
Well, that's great to hear. I know it must be pretty exhausting doing what you do. You know, you're traveling around, you're repeating the same old information every time. I'm sure you could just do it in your sleep by now, but you're feeling generally positive and optimistic and uplifted about the way things are going.
Oh, definitely. We've had people that actually start crying after the meetings. They come up to me with tears in their eyes and they say, thank you, you give me hope again, let's do this. Yeah, the people are ready. Yeah, it's time. And it's, the thing is it's not just the UK in this fight anymore. It's countries like Canada and Australia and New Zealand, and yeah, the people are ready and they're excited.
You feel that all it's going to take is one of these nations having a major victory and a major breakthrough, and that will serve as an example to all others and start this kind of domino effect?
Article 61 is all about unity. We got to work together on this one. We're doing it. We've got 94 countries involved now.
Great to hear. You've put all 800 members of the House of Lords on notice for aiding and abetting treason.
Yes.
So what did that process involve, and what's the current status on that?
Well, they haven't tried to reply to me. They know that they're committing treason. They're probably scared. Took 3 days to type all those names in. But I also I basically put the entire assembly on notice, because I also put the UK cabinet on notice and followed it up with all acting MPs and government whips throughout the entire Commonwealth realm. So yeah, we pretty much got them all.
And you served those notices by post, did you?
Yes, registered mail.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, a few weeks ago now.
Okay. Do you think a lot of them are quietly shitting themselves over this?
Yes, they should be. They should have answered to the treason matter, but they haven't. And the fact of the matter is, the barons who invoked Article 61 were thrown out of both Parliament and the House of Lords. So they know that they're criminals, and they know that they know how Article 61 works. It's the only law in effect until the rule of law is restored. They know that. There's no getting out of this one.
And yet all we see in the UK is the tyranny just getting ramped up more and more and more. So they've had notice served on them. They know that there are people coming after them, and yet they still continue with the agenda and they still keep it going. There's no sign
they're going to push it even harder. They're going to push it even harder, because that's the thing. They know they're on borrowed time.
They're digging their own graves even deeper.
Yes, that's exactly it. Some of my Australian admins, they actually want us to hold a contest for the most seditious reply. You should see some of the replies we get from the regime. They're quite comical, but yeah, they're totally in panic mode.
Right. Again, it's something that the mainstream media just forgot to tell us.
Yeah, well, that's why we've started a campaign on the BBC and the heritage ministers throughout the Commonwealth, because a lot of people don't realize that the BBC is actually owned by the people. It falls into the same category as our post office. So it's the duty of the heritage minister to make sure that the BBC and its affiliate stations throughout the realm are putting out accurate news to the people. So they've committed some very big crimes. They have.
Yeah. And they make us pay for it as well. Well, those of us that pay the TV license, that is. Imagine paying for your own propaganda,
that's a
paying
crime
for your own
too.
mind
They're not
control.
allowed to do that. The BBC and all of its affiliate stations are supposed to be free.
Yeah. Oh, my days. There's so many offences and transgressions being employed here. It's just unbelievable.
Well, that's because they've usurped our courts and removed our juries and our jury nullification. That's why. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the private criminal prosecutions being brought by Michael O'Byrne-Sia against British MPs?
I am familiar with it.
Do you think that's got legs and is going to go somewhere?
Nope. Criminals don't punish themselves. Sorry to say.
So what's he doing with that that's different to what you guys are doing?
Well, for one, he's aiding and abetting by granting them authority simply by walking into a courtroom. There are no lawful courts. He might as well be walking into McDonald's and handing them authority to make a decision.
So do you think his case is doomed to fail?
Yes. Criminals don't punish themselves. They'll happily dance him around from hearing to hearing to hearing and empty his wallet with every single one of them. It's a corporation. They're going to make as much money off of him as they possibly can. But nothing's going to come of it.
And the same thing with the Simon Dolan case. I mean, he's going through the traditional court system with that, so that's doomed to fail.
Exactly. We need to restore the rule of law that puts the people back in power. And there's only one way we can do that.
I mean, that Dolan case, the can's just been kicked further and further down the road. It's been stretched out for almost a year now, and it's clearly going nowhere.
Exactly. But how much money has he spent with court fees and filing fees and all that jazz? Like, they're making money off him hand over fist.
Yeah, that court system is set up for profit. You know, they exist to make a profit. They're a business.
Exactly. They're not there for justice. Justice is supposed to be seen to be done. And that's the thing about the court du jour. Sure, it might be 12 jury members that are making the decision, but those court cases are fully public. There's no hidden agenda. They're all free and they're all public. That's why they removed our court du jour system, because it is public, so justice can be seen to be done. It's based on natural law and principle. We also have the jury nullification and the private common law prosecution. And that would come in really handy right now against this treasonous regime.
Sure would. Where are these courts then that you're speaking of, where this kind of case could take place? Where are these court buildings? Which ones are they?
There are public courts already. Every single courthouse you see.
So is any courthouse in the land?
Yes. That's how they're supposed to be run. But criminals have usurped our courts. They've hijacked our buildings.
So if any of these MPs that you've put on notice were to be arrested for the crime of treason, who would actually do the arresting? How would that look? How would that actually take place? And if, what would happen to them? Would they go to jail? And if they go to jail again, who physically enforces that?
Okay, well, the police are going to have to do their jobs. They work for us, so they're going to have to do their jobs or turn in their uniforms. It's that simple. If you can't investigate the crime that has happened in multiple countries and been reported by hundreds of thousands of people, then you're not fit for the uniform. So it's that simple. Do your job or turn in your uniform. But the barons are going to have to come back and help us convene a proper court du jour where they will stand trial for treason. Article 61 is the only law in effect until the rule of law is restored and the people have redress. It's that simple. So we will have to convene a proper court du jour in our public buildings and properly try them in a court du jour. And the penalty for treason is still hanging throughout the Commonwealth. So, and they're well aware of that. That's why they're so scared. They think we're inciting violence against them, but we're not. Because that's the thing. Article 61 tells us we can distress and distrain the crown in any way we see fit, as long as we do not bring them harm. That's for a jury to decide.
It's straight justice under natural law.
Exactly.
You take the consequences of your actions. So if you commit treason and genocide, you take the natural consequences for doing so. That's
exactly
God's law,
we are all
nature's
responsible
law.
for our own actions, inactions, and omissions. And Article 61 is clear that nobody is above the law.
Are there enough people in the UK that know how to make this work and get the job done? Because someday you're going to go back to Canada and it's going to be down to people in this land to make all this stuff happen. Do you feel there are enough people on board already?
Oh, yes. We're going to be done very soon.
How realistic is it to expect the likes of Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock, Chris Whitty, all these other traitors to be held up to account for their crimes? Is that a realistic prospect for this year?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, that's a very real prospect. You'll
Music
have
to
to
my
come
ears.
to one of the redress meetings and see what's going on.
Yeah, music to my ears. Dust off the gallows.
Yeah, it's time.
Wow.
Redress is very simple. Like I said, Article 61 is an instruction manual to the people. So all we got to do is follow what our Constitution tells us to do, and we got this. And the people can see that now. So I put it very clear to the people at these redress meetings exactly what needs to be done and how we got to go about doing it. And they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's music to my ears.
To mine as well. And I think it was Tony Blair, from what I've been told, who's as good an example of a psychopathic traitor as you're ever going to get, repealed the death penalty for treason. So he saw to it that hanging was no longer the penalty for committing treason. And it speaks volumes that he would have done that during his time in office. But that would have been done, I guess, through the traditional Crown Court system, corporation.
Well, the fact is you can't repeal a treason law without committing treason. And he had already committed treason prior to that. So he didn't even have the authority to even attempt that. So, yeah, there's a lot of double think in that one.
Yeah. And treason, it seems, is just the icing on the cake or the cherry on top of all the crimes that Boris Johnson and his band of psychopathic maniacs have committed. You know, it's got to be crimes against humanity, genocide, malfeasance, domestic terrorism.
That's the thing. Treason is the worst possible crime because it is the death of an entire nation. So it umbrellas all the rest of their crimes.
Yeah, of which there are many.
Worst. That's why Article 61 is the highest constitutional law ever written, because it's the law that deals with the crime of treason.
So you're very much carrying on the work of David Robinson, who sadly passed away the other week. Do you just want to address David's...
He passed away in November.
Okay. Would you just like to address David's contributions to this cause?
Yes. David fought very hard for the past 20 years for our sovereignty under Article 61. He started Practical Lawful Dissent, and he trained me for 2 years for an international push for redress. So I'm carrying on his legacy, and we're going to make it happen. But he did so much for the people and this whole movement. Like, he did up our documents, and he successfully seized Glastonbury Town Hall using Article 61. He had many wins and successes using the process, and he was our mentor. He inspired all of us. And now, thanks to him, Article 61 has gone international. So it's very, very nice to see the people are excited about redress and his life's work.
Okay.
He's a very special man.
So I've heard news from different quarters about how the people can empower themselves with common law, constitutional law. But it seems there are different groups and different people sort of working separately from each other. So I've had conversations with Christopher James, with John Smith, Michael O'Byrne-Sia. I'm having a conversation with you now. And none of you seem to be like all together on the same page, working together. It's like lots of different groups doing their thing rather than everyone together in one massive collective effort. So the lack of unity seems to be a real problem. You know, we look at our opponents and they seem to be able to organize themselves and get on the same page and get the job done. But when it comes to us fighting back, as I say, there's lots of disparate groups doing their thing individually rather than one big collective push. How do you feel about that?
I feel there's a lot of ego involved in it, that's for sure. I question people's motives. But in reality, the fact of the matter is, it boils down to Article 61. It's the only law in effect. You're either obeying it or you're not. So if people want to unite and use Article 61 properly, then by all means. But we have to remain lawful, and we are using the highest constitutional law ever written. We don't sway from that. People are welcome to come and join us, but yeah, we don't mix methods. We don't go into the fake courts. We don't do things like that. We have to do this lawfully. It's the only way to restore the rule of law and get redress for the people. So David has always been firm on protecting the group and us standing on the truth in law. And that's what we do. We stand on the truth in law and we go forward for redress. So I don't know what to say other than people need to figure it out. There's only one law in effect. You're either obeying it or you're not. It's that simple. Anything else is aiding and abetting.
Where do you feel we're at now compared to 1 year ago, just when this whole COVID scamdemic started to break, in terms of people gaining an understanding of all of this? Would you say there's been an absolute tidal wave of support and recognition from people, or has it been a slow drip thing?
Oh, we've been overwhelmed. Yeah. For the past year, our numbers have jumped by the tens of thousands very, very quickly. All of our groups actually have. Ireland is uniting under Article 61. South Africa, we just opened that group for them. So they're getting things together there. So yeah, the number of Commonwealth countries joining the movement and joining the fight has been absolutely enormous. We even have non-Commonwealth support. Even the Americans are taking the oath and standing with us under Article 61. So it just goes to show exactly how this law works, because it's like an unstoppable force. Article 61 was designed to win, and it will remain the only law in effect until the people have redress. So it's just a matter of time.
So what nations can use Article 61? It's not just Commonwealth nations. Other nations outside of that can stand under this as well, right?
All Commonwealth and former Commonwealth countries can take the oath of Article 61.
So where does that leave nations that have never been a part of that? They've got to have their own system.
Well, like I said, we have a lot of non-Commonwealth support. They're just kind of waiting. They're doing their own thing for now. Like Italy's doing their stuff, and you know, they're doing protests and whatnot right now. But we do have a lot of non-Commonwealth support. As David always said, because the Commonwealth is so large, that once we get redress for the Commonwealth nations, then it'll just topple like a domino effect throughout the world, because the people will see the value in Article 61 and their constitution, and they're just naturally going to want to adopt it. The people aren't going to give up their protection, right? It just makes sense. Now,
one thing that we've had a lot of recently is predictions from various pundits of things that are going to happen on certain dates. And I've had my fill of, predictions of things. But without asking you to put a specific date on things, do you feel that by the end of 2021, we're going to be in a very different situation to what we are now in terms of having our rights and freedoms restored. So I won't ask you to get any more specific than that in terms of dates, but by the end of this year, do you think we'll be in a very different place?
Oh, yes. Without a doubt.
Good to hear. Lord knows we could do with a break.
Yeah, well, we're going to put the people back in power, that's for sure. This is our freedom year.
It just seems like the evildoers have had things all their own way for a very, very long time. And it's about bloody time that the people started scoring one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. Article 61 is undeniable in law. It's unrebuttable, and it's designed to win. It's designed to protect the people, and it's designed to end treason and tyranny. It was born out of treason and tyranny to fight treason and tyranny. So, I don't know. I honestly can't understand why the Brits have been arguing about it for the last 20 years, because it's like a no-brainer to me. Yeah. As soon as I heard Article 61 and 1215 Magna Carta, I was like, bing, that's what we need. So,
yeah, it seems treason and tyranny never went out of fashion. It just keeps carrying on.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. They think they're above the law, so we have to show them that they're not. Article 61 is the only way to do it. That's why they try to deny it so hard. That's why there's so much propaganda around it, because the criminals don't want to punish themselves. They've set themselves in a position where they think they have authority over the people, but that's not how it is. The people have authority over the government. They work for us. They are public servants. They need to be reminded of that.
And the latest aspect of the tyranny that we're getting in the UK is the big push of the vaccine. And we're hearing things like you might not be able to travel internationally to get on a plane unless you've got a vaccine passport, and you might not be able to enter certain buildings or do certain jobs. So presumably the whole vaccine thing just comes under the umbrella of treason, along with everything else. And that all gets blown out of the water once these criminals are put up on treason charges.
Yes, exactly. The fact of the matter is that these documents that they've been signing, they coincide with each other. Okay, so it starts with the 1942 Berlin document that proves that the EEC is actually the Nazi backup plan in case they didn't win the war militarily. That document was used almost verbatim in the 1992 Maastricht Treaty. Okay. We've got the Treaty of Rome, the Treaty of Nice, the Maastricht Treaty. We've got the United Nations treaties. They all coincide with each other. These documents reference each other, and they are driving us straight into the New World Order and all of these Nazi propaganda regulations. Like, that's exactly what we're seeing.
It is.
And it's all right there in the treason evidence.
And one of my biggest worries is that they're going to drag this scamdemic thing out for a few more weeks. It's always been in their plans to do that. And then they'll gradually give us back some of our rights and freedoms and say, you can go to the pub again, you can open up your business again, you can go on holiday now. And things will just kind of fizzle out. And people, the general public, will be so relieved that they've got some semblance of normality back that they'll just forget all about what's been done to them, and it will just, fizzle out, and they'll get away with it. They mustn't be allowed to get away with it. They mustn't be allowed. It doesn't matter if we get all our rights and freedoms back.
Treason evidence, because no, this is the depopulation agenda. Okay, life will never be normal again unless we do something about it. We are at the end.
They can't be forgiven. They can't be forgiven for this. There's no forgiveness.
This is the 11th hour of a worldwide war that most people don't even see. That's the scary thing. This is their depopulation agenda. The few that do live are going to be fully enslaved. We're not even going to be allowed to own our own furniture. It'll all be rented off of them via universal credits. It's all right there in the treason evidence. Their crimes are laid out in black and white. And no, they don't plan on take the jab and life will go back to normal, because that's not the case. People are already dying from these vaccines.
So all of that is what would happen if they were allowed to get away with it, but they won't
Exactly. But we're not going to let them get away with it. We've got the security clause. It's the only law in effect, and it's designed to stop this madness. So the people are going to use it. They're going to use it wisely, and we're going to restore the rule of law.
So let's talk about the redress tour then. You've done a bunch of dates already, and you're resuming that next week from Monday the 22nd. So you've got some dates in the diary. You're in Nottingham on the 22nd, Milton Keynes on the 23rd, then a whole bunch of other dates which are listed on the Practical Lawful Dissent Facebook page. So how much longer are you going with that tour?
Well, the sooner we can finish up the tour, the better. But the people, once they leave a venue, the people start talking amongst themselves, and word starts getting out about what we're doing. And next thing you know, they're asking for us to come back. So we're kind of going on a demand thing right now, but that is subject to change.
Okay. And if people come along to one of these meetings, it's the kind of information you've shared with me today that they'll be getting?
Well, they'll be getting more than that. There's certain things we can't discuss on here, but
right.
But yeah, it's all about getting redress.
Okay.
It's the most important meeting people could ever attend.
Sounds like it, yeah. All right. Well, is there anything we've not covered today, Jackie, that you'd like to add?
I think we pretty much covered it all.
Okay. Do you want to point people towards the Facebook group page and any other online portals for your work?
Oh, yes. Our Facebook group, Practical Lawful Dissent, UK, Canada, and Commonwealth. We've also got Practical Lawful Dissent, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and South Africa. So we've got all those groups that people can join. We've also got practicallawfuldissent.com. We've got Article 61 Magna Carta 1215.uk. There's other groups. There's shoot-off groups on other platforms as well, but I don't know exactly which ones off the top of my head. But yeah, they can also email me at a61phoenix@gmail.com. So there's all sorts of ways to get a hold of us.
Okay. Well, I've had so many conversations over the past year since this COVID madness broke. And a lot of them have been quite hopeless and left me feeling very dejected. And they've been full of doom and dread about all the things that the control system wants to roll out. So it really makes a refreshing change to have a conversation which is full of hope and optimism. And I can tell that, you are full of those things. And so, yeah, we could all use some good news at this point in the game. How much doom and gloom and dread and hopelessness can a human mind and soul take? We've been psychologically tortured these last few months. We've had all the joy and happiness removed from our lives. So it's about time we started to feel hopeful again about the way things are going to pan out in the future. And I'm sure this conversation will have instilled some of that in many of the people listening.
Yes, the people are getting full of hope again. It's very beautiful. The smiles on people's faces after we have these redress meetings are just, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. There's happiness abound. Light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, yeah, Lord knows we need it. And for anyone listening to this that wants to get involved, they want to do something, they want to roll up their sleeves and, get on the team. What sort of ways can people get involved practically?
The first step is to get into the Practical Lawful Dissent UK, Canada, and Commonwealth group. Take the oath, do your lawful standing, and get the groundwork done, the 3 C's, cops, courts, and councils. From there, you can go after anyone in office. And the more evidence we have, the better, because once the people have redress, there will be a Commonwealth-wide announcement for the people to submit their evidence. That's our copies of all notices served under Article 61. So the more evidence we have against these criminals, the better.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be keeping a close eye on how things pan out there. So other than that, Jackie, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
This is just a wrap. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up